All right, here we go. We're in. Let's turn this light off real quick. I knew I'd forget something. All right, here we are back again. Well, it's probably been like 2 weeks, but this is like episode 6, season 1 of the Wheel of Time show by Robert Jordan. Amazon Prime did it, and I want to discuss the show, and my friend wants to discuss the show. My name is Mike, and I have Chad with me. Welcome, Chad.
Yo, yo, yo.
Yo, yo, yo. Let's uh, let's hop in. We don't have a whole lot of time today.
Right.
I have about 30 screenshots,
Okay.
and you know, we'll take a look at those as we go. And I've got your notes somewhere around here. There they are,
Sweet.
so I can kind of follow along. Okay, once again, your notes line up with my screenshots that I took last week, which was always fun.
Nice.
Swan fishing with her father.
Yeah.
What do you have anything to say about it, or is that just to kind of keep your place?
Yeah, just kind of keep my place. I mean, I don't know too much about her background, so for me, all the information I have on her basically comes from this scene right here. That she comes from a village in Tyr, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, dear.
And she was a channeler as a young girl that she had to hide it. Um, she lived alone with her father. Uh, don't know what happened. Obviously, he's missing a hand. They're alone together. Just the two of them seem to have a really tight bond with each other. So I'd assume something has happened in their previous history that's led to where they're at in this moment. Um, you see her in this scene channeling and the father or channeling while they're fishing because her father's struggling to untie the knots in
Right.
his net right there,
Yeah.
and he's concerned for her because he wants her to hide it, but he's also happy and proud of her because she's becoming stronger and better
Right.
in her command of channeling. So I thought it was really interesting, and then they come back to the house shortly after a really sweet moment between Swan and her father, and you see the house is burned in a ruin in the infamous Dragon's Fang.
Yeah. Right there on like their door or
Yes.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So Swan is from Tyr, and um, that city is like notorious for being a very anti magic period. They're very suspicious, and so this is kind of like demonstrating that with him being very concerned and her kind of saying nobody's seen it. I was careful, that kind of thing. And I just want to give a little bit of background for this. It comes up a lot, not a lot, but it's mentioned in the books, and it should be brought up in the show sometime later. That Swan is very, very good with puzzles. Like she's really good at picking apart puzzles and patterns. If there is a pattern, she'll see it. And I like that they put this. Again, I like it when they put in scenes that are not in the books, but also follow like the trueness of the kind of character that these people are. And we've already learned in previous episodes of the show that, and in the books, that whatever a channeler's first channeling is usually like a very big part of who they are as a person. So like, um, Nynaeve is the wisdom of Emmons Field, and then we have this big explosion of healing. as a
Yeah.
wisdom in Emmons Field, she's a healer, so it makes sense that she's good at healing, right?
Yeah.
We don't know quite what kind of channeler Egwene is going to turn out to be yet, but we've seen her channel a couple of times, and now we see here, even if the even if they never show this anything like this again, I like that they put this scene in here. It means they're thinking about demonstrating character traits in a show that there's very little screen time available. So I love this scene.
Yeah.
And then we have this right after it with the dragon's fang. So somebody suspected Swan of channeling, I guess, or just natural suspicion.
Hmm.
And that's just to set the stage to send her off to the White Tower. We had a big emotional scene where they're hugging and sending her off, and she's brave and has to get out there. Um, so I'm trying to see what my next slide is, this overhead shot, because I don't think they don't really talk about in the show what any of this is. These Aes Sedai along the edges of the hall of the tower. I like the overhead shot. It's a good visual, um, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Which that now makes sense. So I know that you wanted to kind of talk about some things in the intro, um, maybe some symbolism and what was in there. And I noticed that there was the weaves were ripping apart and binding back together.
Right,
Uh, and I noticed that there was 7 women that it was showing. They were all in different dresses, different colors, and I thought that it might be different Aes Sedai, or I don't know what the groups are called, the
the
not
Ajas.
houses or whatever, the Aja, the different Aja
Yeah,
groups. But I noticed it was 7 women in a circle there at the end. After all the weaves had kind of got done weaving the pattern, it was 7 women in a circle, all from different Aja groups, and that's kind of all I could take away from it. But I don't know,
right. I
maybe
mean,
what you.
I just like all the whole intro, the symbolism of the weaves forming, or I was looking at it as it's weaves of the pattern. So
Hmm.
I enjoyed it. I'll admit I did not go back and take screenshots of that intro. Um, so I like
Yeah,
it.
no worries.
I don't have anything to show on screen for it. I enjoyed the symbolism. I enjoyed the focus on the um, the Ajas of the Aes Sedai.
Hmm.
And I am gonna go back and take some screenshots. I forgot to for this
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
Um, and then I wanted to. I think my next one is here we go. The man of the hour.
Yes,
So
man.
this was a really good scene. I think I enjoyed it. I know some, like, the book handled it different. Logain was
Hmm.
very much like in the background in the books. I like this better. This is like a confrontation between a male channeler and the White Tower, and it just shows, despite how powerful he is, you see his desperation at the end.
Yeah.
Trying to antagonize them to get Swan to kill him, and the Amerlin's not falling for it. She's like, you're not gonna make me, you're not gonna trick me into killing you.
Yeah.
But there's some stuff that happens right after this, I think. Mm,
Yeah, I enjoyed this scene. I thought it showed a lot. Um, just from kind of a conversation that we had yesterday where Logain kind of tells the Amerlin seat how weak they are in
right.
today's age. I felt like this scene was really good at giving a broader picture of the current dynamics. of the way the world is, the power that the Aes Sedai hold, and the farther you get from the tower, the less their grasp is on the people there.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and you had brought up that quote from him where he talks about how 100 years ago a man would challenge the Emerald seat and the people in the town would kill him just for mentioning that, and he's like, I had an army at my back within a year marching on you.
Right. Yeah.
And
I enjoyed that. It's
yeah, and he talked about the way the world going forward too is, the only thing that anybody's going to remember from this is that I stood against 7 of your sisters by myself.
right. Yeah. That's. I mean, this whole scenario really condenses down a lot of, like, in the books it's spread out over like chapters and chapters and chapters about the status of the Aes Sedai. It's kind of secretive. The Aes Sedai are very cautious, but here we are, again, a scene that's not in the book but encapsulates like the story that is kind of hidden in the books that you kind of have to pick apart is right here on display. You get to peek behind the curtain and see what is happening and what somebody like Logain sees in the tower. And I also thought that they portrayed um, the Aes Sedai's kind of contempt for Logain's status. He was gentled and is no longer a threat. Why is this man in chains? He's no threat to us. Was a really good line. I while I'm watching the show, I'm constantly like on alert for the stuff that goes wrong is easy to catch. The stuff that goes right is also easy to catch, and this is a good capture of like the Amerlin's character and the Aes Sedai as a whole of how they really think about men that can channel. They're nothing. Like they're nothing, and they have to maintain that attitude. But
Something
then,
interesting
yeah, go ahead.
for me that I saw right after this where um I believe her name's Alana.
In the
Alana,
in the green, yeah,
yeah, Alana in the green. She kind of backs up Leandrin in her defense to the Emerald seat, which was strange to me how there's such a conflict, and it seems how there might be I don't know if I'd call it an alliance, but maybe more or less from my perspective a friendship between Moraine and Alana, or even the blues and the greens. I don't know how deep it goes, but at least between them two, where you see Alana step up to speak on Leandrin's behalf and kind of back up her message, of they were justified in what was done to Logain. And you could see the surprise on Moraine's face that she was like, what are you doing? What are we doing? You know, that you're gonna come to Leandrin's aid in her
right.
defense right here. So that kind of stood out to me, and then that Moraine stuck with it. I think that maybe once Alana had done it, she had to kind of follow suit. Um, that way Alana isn't, she doesn't get Alana in trouble or either, um, you know, set herself out
Right.
to hang. So I thought that was interesting.
This is probably the best display so far. We don't see a lot of the White Tower in the books until later, and to see this now is nice to see, so that you kind of set the tone. There's things going on inside the tower that, um, like currents that are going on in the background. They show one kind of front to the public, and then behind closed doors there's politics, and what the show and the book is going to end up referring to as the game of houses, where every action means something. Every action is a means to an end or trying to meet a goal. And I couldn't quite figure out why Alana came to Leandrin's aid. I personally think it was to test Moraine's loyalty to the group that ultimately gentled Logain, and but that's just a theory. There's no way to confirm that, but it makes sense in the context of like why else would a green defend a red? And the only reason to do that in my mind is to not not bait Moraine out, but just kind of like force her into a situation where she has to either agree with Alana that they did the right thing or throw Leandrin under the bus and ultimately like split the tower further, I guess. I thought it was a good scene.
Yeah, which was addressed later on. Yeah, I felt
Mhm.
like this episode was really good, at least from my perspective of trying to give some depth to the houses and the internal conflict between them. Later in the episode, Moraine meets with, I would assume she's kind of like a head of house of the blue.
Oh, right.
Um,
My gun, yeah.
yeah, and she kind of tells her, what that there's fractions being made and alliances that have been in place, and Moraine's presence and her mission is going to set that up for potential breaking and cause more conflict. So I thought that that was interesting just to see that dynamic, that there's you know internal conflict between the houses. I wouldn't have suspected that from the Aes Sedai. I thought they were a united front. They all had their own different agendas. I didn't think that there was, that kind of dynamic, but it was good to see that in this. So you kind of understand that even though they're all on the same side, they have their individual motives, and they're all kind of working in the shadow secretively from each other, um, which
That's
was
a
really cool to see.
that's a good that's a good point. I think it came down to the show writers having a decision to make. Do we have enough time to make it look like the Aes Sedai are all together and then spend time debunking that from the point of view of like Egwene and Nynaeve, if they're in the tower? Do we have enough time to do that? I think the answer is no. I don't think they have enough showtime slotted throughout the however many seasons this runs to show that how they're kind of all one people on the outside, and then kind of bickering amongst each other and playing games internally. I think it'd be kind of hard to demonstrate that. It would have been nice to see, but I like that the fact that you noticed it means that they did their job. This is what they're going for. They want to show there's tension there.
Yeah, and I think they did it in a few different ways. Not only with this scene and the conversation we talked about in the bathhouse, but also in Moraine's conversations with uh, the group, the kids, where she's telling Nynaeve when she's in the tower, to keep to yourself,
Right.
um, and that everybody's gonna try to get their hands on you, and they're gonna fight over you, and they all have their motives for you. And
Right.
then also later up in the episode with Perrin and Egwene when they come in, I think that there's, at least in the dialogue, you can see a continuation of the message that they're trying to portray of we're united on the outside, but internally we're all trying to reach for power. We're all trying to gain an advantage. At least that's the way it seems to me, because everybody wants to get their hands on Nynaeve. She's a powerful channeler. I think any house would be, you know, grasping to get their hands on her so that they can cloak her in their color, um, and add her to them to their ranks. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I just saw that, and then also with the conflict between Moraine and Leandrin, which we'll see coming up.
Right. So we have Swan here being very, very defensive, very aggressive. Just not one or the other, but just like a combination of both, where she's extremely upset, very, very authoritative, and I, I don't know if they're changing things. I can't really talk about it, but this this scene could change some things about what they do in the show later on. So this is not the Suwan that I know, but they could be doing some things in the background that would make this make sense. So I don't want to like get into it too much. I took the screenshot. I just wanted to point it out that I have a fan theory coming up, but I can't I can't get into it without talking to somebody who's read all the books, if that makes sense.
So
But
for me, what I took away from her scene was, I mean, in this it seemed like there was obviously, she's not power hungry, but she's very authoritarian, like you said. But she, you see later on in the episode that, her and Moraine have their relationship, and so for me it was just more or less Suwan putting on a show in front of everybody to show that, you know, basically trying to not disassociate herself, but show that she's going to treat Moraine like everybody else, um, and try to kind of push off the potential narrative of her and Moraine being close with one another. Um, I think that
right,
there's also some emotional hurt coming out in her because they've been separated for so long and what they mean to each other.
right,
I think that it added that kind of depth to it. For me, seeing this scene first kind of threw me off. I was like, okay, who is this character? You see the sweet innocent beginnings, then you get to this and she's,
pissed.
demanding
Yeah,
and power hungry in a way. And then later on you see that that was kind of all a front in front of all the other Aja.
right.
Um, so that's just kind of what I took away from this.
Yeah, I think you were supposed to, um, and I think they did a good job. I mean, I have my own problems with it. Again, I can't talk about it without spoiling things for book readers. But this, I thought they portrayed her well, but different. Um, so, because we don't really get to see the Amaryllis a whole lot. She's pretty important. So to have her on display this early is kind of, I don't even think we meet the Amaryllis until book two in the books. So that's, it's kind of interesting. But I wanted to move on, and that was a great scene with all that. But I kind of want to trying to keep an eye on the time. We're already at like 25 minutes, so this scene here, we kind of switch over to Moraine has just gotten out of this really intense like conversation with her boss, effectively, and she immediately goes back into I've got my own mission that I'm worried about. It's I've got my eyes and ears out there, and they found you know Matt and Rand, and Land is like confirming it, and I think we see a shot of like Loyal and Nynaeve leaving the house, and so Moraine goes over there. And I just want to point out this scene here. We don't get to see a lot of like expertise on display, but this scene here is Rand has pulled a sword to defend Matt, and he points it right at Lan. And then as soon as Rand turns his eyes away, this happens. It's just I like the martial display, and Land looks totally chill, and then as soon as Rand loses his attention for a split second, he's on the bed pinned down.
Yeah, it was impressive. It just adds to Land's um, ability that everybody hints at,
Right.
and that's just kind of where for me, like so far between the book and the show, like Land's the baddest motherfucker out there, you know, and compared to everybody else as a fighter,
Right.
and they try to hype up these other people as great fighters, but I feel like Land's the one that gets his shot the most. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, he makes quick work of Rand right there.
He's the focus of all the praise for martial skill, and
Hmm.
I think it's well deserved. This next scene is interesting. I have my own thoughts, but I wanted to see what you had to say about this. This is the scene where Matt is, well, he's not in a good spot, and Moraine walks in and she's like, "Nope, let's take a stab at fixing this."
Yeah, it was. I mean, you've been seeing it now in a few episodes. Matt, going through hell. you know, after he's stolen that dagger from Shadow Lugoth, and you you see it on full display. You really see it kind of creeping up. You know, in the last episode, kind of hinted at some things. You kind of see Matt losing his grip of at least mental control on himself.
Right.
And when Moraine shows up, yeah, I mean, you see a few things. You see Matt, not Matt, but Rand concerned that Moraine's here. He's scared that, you know, she's gonna take Matt and treat him like the false dragon. You know, he just saw that on display the day before or very recently. Um, but then you see, you know, Matt try to take a shot at Moraine, and I don't think that that was Matt as much as it was whatever it is inside of him. Uh,
Right.
but I thought visually this was really cool to see her pull the darkness out of Matt. And you see her put it back into the dagger, and it was really cool visually how they show that evilness or whatever you would call it try to, as it's going from Matt to the dagger, try to latch onto Moraine
I
and
was
go for her
gonna
mouth.
I was gonna mention that because like visually, what we're seeing is something leaving Matt as almost like a host, I guess. If
Hmm.
and I say that because it tried to latch on to Moraine,
Hmm.
with no book context whatsoever. I would assume that this is not something that we've seen yet. Like we know it's from Shadar Logoth. We know that it's something different, but we don't know what kind of different. But we do see that it's not only attached to Matt. That it doesn't care if it who it's attached to. It tries to make a grab for Moraine on its way back to the dagger. And I think that's probably uh, I mean, we know it's intentional because they put it in the show, but I also think it's significant. I think it's a good visual representation that, you know, because we saw when low gain channels, we've got these white weaves mixed with black to demonstrate like the
Hmm.
taint of the power from a man. Um, but this looks like they have animated this differently. It's like clinging to his teeth on the way out, tries to grab
Yeah.
Moraine on the way to the dagger. Like I think this is their show is telling us this is something different.
Yeah, that I took that away from this as well, that it's something different, and it left me with questions of the backstory of the dagger. Like, how did all this happen? I know, you know, that city, the
Right.
history of that had happened a long time ago, but the Trollocs and the evil people of the current day in this story are afraid of that city for this reason right here, which makes me think if they're the evil ones, why would they fear this? You know, what role does this have to play? What is the backstory? Where does it come from? How did that darkness get locked in a dagger and it attaches itself to a host? So yeah, it's good food for thought. Um,
Yeah,
and
they've
as this series, go ahead.
they've talked about it in the show already and the book. And the real answer is we don't really know. Like this is a weak point on the author's part. Like he did not flesh this out and make it clear. It's kind of almost up for interpretation. The significance of the dagger itself is not important. I believe they talk about if anything is taken that belonged to Shadar Logoth, that it would have been tainted. For the show, they made it a dagger, and they didn't put anything else on display. It was just in a box by itself. Whereas in the book, it's in like a room of treasure, and Matt just grabs that dagger because of something that happened previously in the book. So I I don't think the dagger is necessarily significant, other than that it becomes significant because it stays in the show. Just as long as he had something from Shadar Logoth, this would have happened anyway.
Yeah.
And you know, as far as like what it is, we don't really know. I think the most common theory is that it's like the evil of suspicion condensed into its own kind of evil. Like it's referenced later on that it's like a different kind of evil, and Trollocs and Fades are terrified of that place because they get killed when they go in there.
It was interesting too, right after this, when Moraine was talking to Matt about, how long it had been and just how strong Matt had to be to fend this thing off for so long.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Before I get to that slide, I think, what is Rand looking at? I'm just curious what your theory is. He's looking
I
at
mean, I
something.
would have.
He looks at Matt. I think he's looking at Matt's face. Is he just looking at Moraine's hand, or do you
Yeah, I
think?
mean, obviously these are visual effects, so like there's nothing really there for him to look at in real life. But I think he's trying to look at what they, what the show writers would want you to look at, with the director, where he would want your attention to be, and that's the darkness of whatever this is getting pulled out by Moraine's power.
Okay,
That's just my interpretation.
okay. And then we have this. This is the scene where Moraine was talking about how strong Matt was. Um, right? Isn't that what you were saying just a second ago?
Yeah, she just talks about, you know, how strong that dagger is and how evil and corrupt it can make you, and that, a lesser person would have succumbed to it weeks ago, but something inside of Matt, I think the word that she used, or the phrase she used, is Matt has no right to be as strong as he was with that, or he has no right to have that kind of strength. um,
Right, like it didn't
and
make
so
any
that
sense
just
to
makes me
her.
think, because that's kind of the first time you see somebody talk about Matt's strength. You could tell he's a witty character. um, he's sly in some aspects, but strength wise, I think that's the first time I've seen that really addressed for his
Okay.
character specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they're bringing it up. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the character. Like timeline wise in the book, this essentially happens in the same spot. This particular interaction, and I think it they do a pretty good job of basically having similar conversations. There's
Hmm.
the she mentions his strength basically right around the same point, and it's kind of it's kind of glossed over, I guess, just because you're talking about reading a long book and you can lose one sentence amongst many. But I like the scene, and I like that they put it in the show because it means that they feel it's important to bring up. Um, I Again, I'm not trying to rush along, but I still have mm, like 15 pictures to go.
We're doing good on time.
Yeah. So I've got my gun here. They don't really say who she is, other than in a later scene she's sitting on one of the three seats
Hmm.
with the blue later on. So I'm assuming that she's the head of the Blue Aja, or at least one of what they call a sitter.
Okay.
Um, and I took a screenshot of this specifically because they're talking about ships going missing in the West, and this is a big breadcrumb for the season finale and going into episode 1 of season 2.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting. I assumed that whenever I saw that the second time through. The first time through, that went right over my head.
Right,
Uh, and I was focusing on the breadcrumb where she was just talking about the Trollocs, which, from the reader, the viewer's perspective, that's what you know about at this point in the story. Uh,
right.
but it was just, what stood out to me from this scene wasn't so much the breadcrumbs that they were laying, as much as it was that Moraine is playing at a lot of different levels here.
Yes,
She's got, her own agenda above all else. So she's got her agenda between her and Suwan.
right.
Then she's got her agenda with what she and the Blue Aja think that her mission is.
Right.
That it's different from the perspective of everybody else, all the other houses. And so that's kind of what I took away, because I didn't really realize before this episode how complex the diplomacy, not diplomacy, but just the games that they're playing with each other between the houses and
Right.
the politics of what's going on here. And I just noticed that there is so many levels stacking up to cover what Moraine's actual intent is and her true mission.
That's a really good catch, and I'm glad that you got it from the show because this is this level of complexity that Moraine operates at is I don't know if it's the best, but it is at a very high level. Like a lot of your everyday Aes Sedai do not operate as well as Moraine does. I don't think so. To see the master on display is is nice, and it also, could you imagine being new to the tower and just getting dumped into all this?
It would be insanely overwhelming.
Yeah, but she handles it like a pro. She's been gone for 2 years. She walks right into the hornet's nest and comes out with exactly what she wanted, right? Like we also get in
Yeah.
this conversation here that Mygon is saying, I'm gonna request that you stay in the tower," and Moraine's like,
Yeah, we'll see about that.
yeah, let's rethink that, and then we see what happens later on.
Have
Um,
friends in high places,
yeah,
or the
yeah.
highest of places.
I took this screenshot because she tells Egwene and Perrin that she tells Matt and Rand and Nynaeve that she has watchers looking for them. And then she tells Egwene and Perrin after her confrontation with Matt and Rand, uh, I have it on good authority that they're alive. She's so sneaky with her words, and I like that they demonstrate it.
Yes.
She does it all the time, but it's nice that they put it in the show, if that makes sense.
I liked it, and what I was kind of taken away from this scene, because I was just wondering, like, why would obviously, why would she not just tell them, hey, they're alive, they're here? And to me, it just kind of adds to the point I was making right before this, that Moraine is operating at a really complex level, and she doesn't want all of her eggs in one basket. She
Right.
knows that if she tells Egwene and or Matt and Rand that the others are there, they are going to go find each other. And when that happens, Moraine doesn't know who's watching them, as kind of comes true later in the episode, that there's eyes on them as well. Moraine's not the only one with watchers,
Right.
and she doesn't know kind of what threats she faces here in Tarvalon. And I think that you can kind of get that from this episode, that while Moraine is, quote unquote, at home, she still faces many threats, and this place is not safe for them.
Right.
And I think that the way that she uses her words here, you can kind of be perceptive to that. You can catch on and see that she is intentionally trying to keep them separated until the moment comes for them to leave.
Right. Like she's very big on control and keeping her options open. So
Yes.
I think this is a good demonstration, and I'm trying to line up your note with. Oh, it's because I was too far down in your notes. That's why. So I have this next scene is Moraine and Egwene still talking, but now they're talking about Perrin,
Yes.
and
So,
she
uh,
tells. I didn't get the scene because I was trying to get the text in here, but as soon as
mhm,
Egwene says this, Moraine whips around. Excuse me, what did you
yes.
just say? Kind of thing. Um,
Which is kind of frustrating for me, because from the show's perspective, they haven't touched on this at all, and I know that they did in the books very briefly, uh, when Perrin was talking with, I forget the guy's name, like the OG wolf guy,
Yeah,
um,
Elias.
that they meet the with Elias,
Yeah.
and he kind of talks a little bit about people like them, and I don't know if that's exactly what Perrin is, or if Perrin is just some kind of person that falls in a similar category, because they don't really address nothing, so I don't know the extent. It hasn't been fleshed out what Perrin is or his powers, and so I'm still wondering, even after 2 seasons of watching the show through and 30 chapters of the first book, I don't have a good grasp on what Perrin is or what his powers are. I know some limitate or some abilities that he carries,
Hmm.
but not a good understanding. And it's obviously something different than the rest of everybody else. You know, Perrin is unique in his ability. It seems to this point. Obviously, he's the only one with yellow eyes. He's the only one that has wolves showing up to his aid and having the abilities that he does. So it just makes me want to get to the bottom of what is Perrin and what is going on with him.
We get some answers in the books, um, and I have an overarching theory about how that works. But uh, as far as yeah, I think Moraine says here, and I think Elias in the book says that the 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 White Tower would react poorly to what he can do. And the real answer to that is they're just scared of stuff they don't know about. They would immediately think it was something from the male half of the source.
Yeah.
Like that's what they would assume, and so they would try to gentle him, and then they would be concerned when that didn't work. So,
Okay. So his ability isn't touching the one source, or it's at least not touching it in a way that they could stop him.
uh, no, it wouldn't do anything. But
Yeah.
Moraine is right here. She says who would do him harm if they knew, and that's why, because they think it's about one thing, whether it is or not.
Mhm.
That's what the White Tower thinks.
Yeah, I'm excited for them to kind of give an explanation to that at some point, hopefully in season 3. Um, they can kind of flesh that out a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, so far they've been. It just seems kind of not inconsistent, but it seems kind of like hit or miss on whether they decide to dig deep into the book and find the answer and put it on display, or just make up their own thing. And that's fine. I don't want to bank on them explaining it, because it's a relatively confusing topic all on its own. Like, I could spend a couple hours talking about what Perrin is.
Okay.
But I hope they show it. I know they kind of bring him up back into the fold a little bit in season 2, and we get to see a little more of what he could do. Um, but moving on. So, uh, so Land goes to Moraine's room and says, you masked our bond, and that clearly bothers him. He's talking about, kind of reiterating what you said. There's clearly some tension and maybe even some danger inside the White Tower, so he's concerned. And then, she's like taking stuff out of her hair, taking off her rings, and all that. And I think Land kind of figures it out, and he's like, "Be back by morning." And this interaction, I believe, 100. None of this happens in the books, but this interaction is one of those scenes where you peek behind the curtain, and this is exactly, in my opinion, how that would play out. Like, if you're gonna go run off, be back by morning. And he's like dead serious, even though he's supposedly like her servant, as some people think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
No,
enjoyed it.
I did as well.
And then we get to spicy scene.
Oh yeah. Which I mean, this kind of caught me off guard watching it the first time through because obviously the way they portray the first interaction, uh, but not this scene right here specifically, but one that comes right after this. I found it really interesting because you find Moraine being comforted for the first time. She is the one receiving the comfort rather than giving it to somebody. Um,
That's a
in
good.
that
That's a good.
she's laying on Swan's lap. It's like you can kind of see, she's been carrying all this weight. She's got literally the weight of the world on her shoulders, trying to move in the will's direction. Um,
Right.
and you see not weakness, but a moment of comfort for her, and she takes it with Suwan. So that just kind of stood out to me from this interaction here, and that they have their own agenda behind whatever's going on with the Blue Aja, which is then behind the Aes Sedai's agenda.
Right. The layers on top of layers, and Moraine's not even 100% honest with the Amerlin. So,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, she's still holding that stuff close. And I want to make a note that you put pillow talk. I just in the books they call this kind of thing that happens in the tower with like novices with new initiates to the tower. When the girls basically hook up for comfort, they call them pillow friends. So I thought that was appropriate.
Okay.
Um,
Good on me.
yeah,
Little pat on the back right there. I'll take
yeah,
that.
yeah. If you hear Pillow Friends, that's this is just imagine this scene.
Okay.
And so we also hear some rumors. This is
Mm.
Swan talking about while she was in Camelin, she heard from a glee man. I heard the tale of a many-headed dragon at the eye of the world, and this is this is where the direction of the show is like we've kind of drifted off course, and then the show writers are like, okay, we got what we needed to get done. Uh, like we gotta make a hard yank and get back on track.
Yeah.
Because this is the finale spot of the books. You know, we can't make everybody angry all the time. We gotta at least try to end it in the right spot. And so they have this scene with Swan. Swan's heard rumors in Camelin from a Glee man, and she believes it. Look at the concern on her face. Again, the actresses did great, and then Moraine, uh, Moraine says, "My gun, you're gonna keep me in the tower? I don't think so," and tells Swan to exile her.
That's right. Get on your knees.
Yeah. Uh, and then I was trying to find. I missed the confrontation with Leandrin. I do.
Okay.
I I remember it, but I don't have a picture of it. But
Yeah.
Leandra
So it was
basically,
right after that scene
yeah. So
that
she
you
like
just said.
threatens Moraine. She threatens Moraine, and then Moraine is like, "I know who that man is in North Harbor," and
Yep.
Leandrin's like, "Shit," and she walks
Yeah.
away.
JK. JK. Yeah.
Now
She got checked pretty fast.
yeah, so that begs the
Which that
question: who is that dude? I think we find out later.
exactly. Yeah. But a bigger point to me was the connection. I just see little breadcrumbs of, I don't want to give things away, but going back after, you've seen it all the way through, you pick up things that you missed the first time, and I'm picking up things that come to play in season two, that make me think there's connections here. You see Pat on Fane,
Hmm.
around the children at where they're at in the city,
Right.
and then all of a sudden Leandrin has all this information, you know, of who's where and who's with who and their names. and it's interesting to see who's out in the streets and who knows that information, and what she comes up with to Moraine.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. I didn't think about it quite in those terms. I think the viewer is supposed to pick up on that, or at least assume that Leandrin is has her own spies. You know, like Moraine talks about having
Absolutely,
her
yeah.
own. Moraine has her own spies, and now it's just whose spies are better. And
Hmm.
Moraine says mine are better.
Yeah.
um, I'm trying to find your note here. Where does I don't remember exactly where, but Moraine does say she needs the builder. I think she's talking to Loyal before this scene, um, but I don't remember the context. I mean, I know
Yeah,
why.
so I think she was talking. Yeah, I don't remember why, because the end of the last couple episodes are a bit foggy, other than the high action scenes. Um, but for me, I think she was talking to Lan, in
Oh yeah,
that
yeah,
she was sending him to make preparations for what's to come next.
right. Because we're about to
Um,
have the big fight between Moraine and the Amerlin, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and also remember that. Uh, what is the builder's name? Leon?
Loyal.
Loyal. Loyal, yeah. He kind of looks at Lan when he's like, "Yeah, I was coming in such a haste," or "I was surprised at such the haste I was requested at." Looked at Lan as if Lan went to go get him and was like, "You need to get your shit. We need to get out of here now."
Right.
And you know that the builder takes everything at his own time, or tries to.
Yeah. Um, so this um, this conversation here between the
Hmm.
Amerlin, Egwene, and Nynaeve, I just want to point out that some version of it happens in book two. So again, we see some compression of the storyline, and I think this is kind of a good. I thought it was a good scene, especially when we get to here. We see like Nynaeve being very defensive the whole time, and then as they're talking, I feel like the Amerlin is reading kind of Egwene's body language and facial expressions, and kind of shifts her focus to put the question directly to Egwene, and this is her response. So what do we need to do? And I think it's a good scene overall.
I do too. It shows Suan's ability of not working people, but having the ability to get what she needs out of someone. You know,
Right.
like to your point, that she knows she's not going to get what she wants or a commitment from Nynaeve, but she can tell that Egwene has a different attitude towards the conversation. And something that I even noticed was that I felt like Suan, even though she was talking to Nynaeve and Egwene, she was really talking to Moraine
Yeah.
in this, talking about, the life that you want, the comfort, the people you want to be around, it, and the will doesn't care about
Right.
what you want or the hopes or dreams that you have. You have a duty to fulfill, and you need to do that. So yeah, it was interesting to see all the dynamics that they put into this spot.
Yeah.
I
They
liked it.
they pack a lot into this one scene, um, and I thought it was good. Next up is our big confrontation with which we know is kind of made up as far as like the actual conflict between the two is not necessarily real.
Hmm.
Um, the so this goes back into part of my concerns from earlier about the way they're portraying the Amerlin. This this oath rod, this is not this is not how that works, and it's kind of concerning. I'm trying to figure out why they did this, and so I think uh, I think I remember something about it from season two. But this is, I mean, just so you know, this is anybody that's read the books and watches this scene is going to be really uncomfortable. So, because this is not how that works. The Amerlin's power is
From
in her authority as the Amerlin seat, not in the Oath Rod.
from a viewer's perspective, I think this is just a tool for them to use to show the finality of this journey. Like the buildup of the last two episodes is to show the potential loss of one another within each other and how
Right.
that's going to affect. Like this whole journey can end in shambles and everybody's broken, and people could be left to the point where they would commit suicide. There's dangers within the city, even though this seems to be a safe haven and this has been their goal to get to since the start of the show. They finally reach it, and it's not the safe haven that they believed it to be. There's threats there,
Right.
and they're setting up to go out on this journey, and there has to be no going back. And Moraine addresses that to the kids later on in the episode, but I think that this is the show kind of showing that Moraine is all in on this. There is no home for her. There is no turning back. And that kind of leads into things that happen in the second season with events that happen to Moraine, and where she ends up. But to me as a viewer, that's just kind of really driving this in that Moraine, once she steps foot out these doors, there is no going back. There is no,
Right.
I wouldn't say backup to call, but there is no base to go to,
I
no
do
home.
wanna I do wanna point out that even in the midst of this and how serious it is, and like whether I have a problem with them using the oath fraud here or not, even in the midst of that, Sawan tells Moraine a specific vow that the Amerlin seat calls her home, and when Moraine repeats the oath, she uses Swan's name, not her title. And
Mhm.
whether that's significant or not, I don't know. But the the fact that she changed the oath, nobody called her on it, and she just kind of slipped it through there, is just another layer to her character's complexity.
Yeah, well, I do know they've kind of hinted at the fractions of the Amerlin seat and politics there. That, I mean,
Right.
they haven't come out and said it, but they kind of feeling the vibe that I could get is that while Suwan is in a position of authority, you know, I wouldn't put it past them after seeing all this that she couldn't be overthrown. I don't know how
Right.
things work. I've already seen the Red Aja try to go against what Suwan has orders that she's put out in place. They
Right.
did it with Logain, and they, even before they had a valid reason to do it, they were already trying to
Right.
stab her in the back on those orders.
They're
So
pushing
that just
against
adds a
her.
little.
Yeah, they're pushing against her authority. Yeah.
Exactly. So that to me could be why Moraine would specifically say Suwan's name, because you never know who's going to end up in power. When you leave and you're forced to not be able to come back, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And I think that just shows how witty that Moraine is.
Yeah, she thinks on her feet. That's for sure. um, so I've got five left. This is probably the first
Okay.
time that I can think of that I really don't have a slide for your next point. Tarvalin reminds you of a city. I don't have that.
Yeah, so
I don't have that shot.
I think it was right before this, before she went into the meeting, and she was standing up at the top of the tower, and just
Right.
looking out over the rolling hills and the river. And to me, it just reminded me of the hill country
Yeah.
of San Antonio,
Yeah.
that little river city.
Yep. I didn't get that shot. It was a good shot. I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't get that shot because I was too shocked at this.
Snap.
So this would be the reason why Moraine needs a builder, and um, this is a little different.
Yeah.
This is a little
So
different.
why would she need a builder for this?
So this goes back to how the ways were constructed,
Okay.
and not necessarily why the ways were constructed, but one of the things that is going on is that the Ogier live in their own little towns that they call steadings. Okay, and in the steadings, you can't feel the one power at all. You don't have access you feel like there's a sense of loss. It's just it doesn't work inside an Ogier steading. And usually outside of where an Ogier steading or their tree grove is a waygate. So
Oh,
there's lots of waygates, and they're near wherever an Ogier steading was or currently is. And the basically the signposts that let you figure out how to get through it are called guidings, and they're in Ogier script, and only an Ogier knows how to get through it, typically. That's how
okay.
it works in the books. So that's why she needs loyal.
Got you. So would that be why she didn't use the way gates to travel all the kids from the two rivers to Tarvalon?
That's the I think it would be more an ignorance on her part, not knowing that there was a waygate there. But in general, Aes Sedai don't even want to go near the ways. So,
Yeah.
I mean, speed is of necessity towards the end of this, leading up to the finale. But up to that point, despite how much of a hurry she was in, nobody really wants to go in the ways. It's pretty dangerous in there.
Yeah, they definitely kind of hint at that.
Yeah.
So Pat and Faye must also have an Ogier.
Uh, no.
So that's what she's it just commented. Because he's obviously traveling faster than the group is.
Uh, Adam Fane's weird.
Okay. All right.
he's weird. I can't really get into it.
All right. We'll just leave it be.
They address it. They address it. I know Cheez It's reading the book. They address it. Um, so, but no, he doesn't have an Ogier. That would be kind of cool though. Have like an Ogier traveling with him. I don't remember who Loyal's talking about right here. They would not survive the ways. I think. Oh, they're talking about. I think they're saying the Trollocs wouldn't survive the ways.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Like trying to basically argue that that couldn't be how they got to the two rivers or something like that.
Mhm.
And then we go here. This is the lead up to the finale. Where are we going? The Dark One's prison. Um, and
Yeah.
not sure how I feel about that. But then we
Yeah. This is where my confusion comes from. That I know me
yeah,
and you have talked about in the past of, who they portray the Dark One to be and how things go, versus what
right.
in actuality it really is. Yeah. It's just the show does a really good and or bad job of leading you to where they want you to be.
Well, when you hold the keys to the truth, you can kind of spin whatever web you want.
Yes.
You want to. I mean, I think the whole purpose here is that um, she's not technically wrong. I guess it could be. I would say it's considered a part of the Dark One's prison. Um, if we're being like real literal and digging into what the book is talking about, and it could be from maybe they're just showing that Moraine is confident, but maybe she doesn't know everything. So I mean, we'll see. We'll just have to see where the show goes. And then this is probably my only like super beef with this episode. I know they change a lot of things. I know they move a lot of things around to kind of suit them. But this is not how those work. They they don't use the power to open or close. It's like a stone door with like a leaf, and you put the leaf on there, and it's this really beautiful like the leaf animates the door, so anybody could go into them or out of them if you know how to move the leaf. But you'd be an idiot to go in there. So I know why they did this. I just don't like it. They did this so that they could let Matt run away. I just
Yeah.
disagree with
Okay.
I disagree with the decision because if Matt's there and all it is a leaf, then Rand and company can go out there and force them in. You know what I mean? But if they make it controlled by the power, then they can say,
They're on a time
"Oh,
crunch.
yeah, oh, the sense of urgency. You got to get through. You got to get through. It's closing." So that's why they changed it. I don't agree with it. I don't know if it's going to cause problems down the road. I was trying to think about it. I don't actually think so. I don't think it'll cause any problems. Um, I just don't like the decision. But anyways, she finally says the thing. It's the thing I've been waiting for her to say since
Yeah.
the show started, because she says it a lot in not as like a defense mechanism, but when stuff's going wrong, this is what she says: "The wheel weaves as the wheel wills,"
I like it.
and it's a good end right as we get closer to the finale. I thought this was overall a good episode, and we're about to be yanked violently back on track to the book's timeline.
I love it.
I do too. I thought it was good. Uh, and we're only 7 minutes over your requested hour, so call it
No, we're good, man.
call it a win.
We're good. I think we did this episode in a good amount of time. Uh, I think they're all going to be a little different, but it does line up for me to get some stuff done.
Yeah. Um,
So
where did you
I'm
you
excited.
said that you
What's up?
were? So you are. What chapter did you say you were on in the books?
Uh, I think it's the Four Kings. That's where I left off.
32.
Yes.
Chapter 32. So, I mean, just so you know, the this break in the book, uh, the break in the book happens between 32 and 44, and then the 44 picks back up where the show, like, this is the violent yank. So the difference is in the book and the show, the big giant ones are in between chapter 32 and 44. So um,
Yeah.
you're about to wade right into it.
Hell yeah. That's good. I'm ready for it to pick up, get juicy for me.
Yeah, 44 is where it gets juicy, and then you just kind of stumble along to the end. I have a hard time getting to 44, and then after I get to 44, shit gets real tense real quick. So,
Good.
but that's
Well,
it.
I'm ready, man.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
throw on my ending soon and stop it here.
Another one in the books.
Yeah, another one in the books. I had a good time.
Yeah.
I keep getting like this mysterious fourth viewer or unique viewer. I really appreciate whoever that is. I'm sorry if you came in at the last minute. Um,
Yeah. At
but
one point
anyways,
there was 5.
really, that's amazing.
Yep.
I wonder if they look at your face and they're like, that's Top Gun 2. This has nothing to do
Yeah.
with
I
real time."
hope it makes him chuckle. I can't help it. I was blessed with these good looks.
I mean, that is more or less like there's scenes in that movie where I'm like, that's Chad. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. But yeah, let me give this thing.